Welcome into the Football Guys Dynasty Show. It is me, as always, your host, Jagger May. And with me is our Dynasty captain, Jeff Bell. And then we have John Bosch. He is everywhere, especially if you're a Dynasty guy. Like, he has eliminator leagues. He does a lot for fantasycares.org. Like I said, you do a lot for this community, John, and we appreciate you. But what we have you here is for that noggin of yours. We want the knowledge. So we are going to go and we're looking at our Dynasty Risers. We're getting towards the end of the preseason. So we've seen real football and we're able to make real decisions, not just off things we hear at camp. We can make gut decisions. We can make informed decisions. But that's kind of what we're here is who is actually risen, who are we actually buying from camp. And we'll start with you, John, with your first guy, Sam Darnold. Me and Jeff has been telling people to buy him. Like, we just got off one show and I told everyone, hey, I told you this would happen if you own JJ McCarthy. Nana Nana Boo Boo. He's Football Guys QB 34, Keep Trade Cuts QB 31. So it seems like Keep Trade Cuts starting to get it. What do you think his upside actually is, and do you think he's actually going to keep the job all year? You're not worried about Nick Mullins or anything like that?
I'm willing to invest. I did label him as a riser. Do I think he keeps the job all year? I don't know. I'm investing at this point because I'm hoping that it pays off that way. I would definitely give a future second for him. I think that's fair. I'm not going to give a first. You're not going to get him for a third.
Yeah.
So a second's his price. And at this point now, I'm willing to pay it. I wasn't willing to pay it before the injury to JJ McCarthy, but unfortunately, as I said, dollar sign asterisks, whatever happens. That is what happens. And now we have Sam Darnold as a more valuable asset. I think he should, as long as he's healthy. He's got great weapons to play with. All he has to do is throw the ball to Justin Jefferson over and 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 over. I think he can do that at least on par with Nick Mullins. So I think he would either have to be really bad or Nick Mullins would have to somehow outshow him in practice, which doesn't seem likely. Unless he gets hurt, I feel fine with Sam Darnold as my QB2 in a super flex league. When I say a second round pick, obviously I'm talking super flex. One QB. Yeah. I don't talk that. Also, don't. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so like you're actually willing to play him, or is this more like you're trying to buy him to flip him later, or kind of both?
I play him. I tend to play my quarterbacks in a super flex league. I like to get one really, really good one. Give me like the Mahomes, the Josh Allen. Give me that one. The second one, I want whatever I can get cheap that's going to go out there and get me 15 to 20 points a week. Like, I don't have high expectations for Sam Darnold. He is a cheap starter. It's hard to get starters for that cheap. And this guy that he's probably going to score 15 to 20 points a game. I mean, he's not going to go out and put up 40 for you. He's probably not going to have, unless you have like negatives or interceptions that are super hefty, he's probably not going to go out there and get just 7 points. So I think you're looking at, a fairly reliable quarterback too for a cheap cost. I'm willing to do that versus investing a whole lot more to try and lock in a guy that might get me like 23 to 25 points a game. That's nicer. That's a whole lot more expensive.
Jeff, or would you pay a second? Because that's a bit rich for me for Sam Darnold. I'd want to trade a player if possible, but I guess if I need a
player, yes,
yeah,
yeah. No, I would too. That's tough because then is it a contender second? And are you a contender if you're trading for Sam Darnold? It's kind of like the chicken or the egg question there for me. But I get it. I get that would be market value for him. I think they're going to throw the ball. I pulled some numbers. I was a little bit uncomfortable when I did my projections when McCarthy got hurt and I made Darnold the full year starter because he shook out as a top 20-ish quarterback for me. When you look at what they had with the amalgamation of Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and Jaron Hall last year, they were on pace for 600 pass attempts, like that group. Like if you were to pull that out over the full season. So I think they're going to throw the ball with Darnold, and we've seen when he was in Carolina, he has got some mobility. I think the biggest thing that prior to the JJ McCarthy injury, there always felt like there was going to be an expiration date on Sam Darnold, starting quarterback for the Vikings. now you take that expiration date potentially, but the thing of it is too, if he has a good season, he's going to be a starting quarterback somewhere next year. And I think don't know that that's really captured in his value. Somebody's going to give him a shot. We see Gardner Minshew a starting quarterback this year. We still see Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback in the NFL. If Sam Darnold has a strong season, he will be a starting quarterback next year. And so that's kind of where if you're bullish on him, you kind of have to play that into the expectation.
We don't have a clear who's the guy coming. We don't have a Caleb Williams for next year.
Right.
So there's going to be opportunities. That's a great point.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be good. It has to be like, okay.
Yeah. We talked about that with Eric Froton. It's like, of course a guy could go on a Heisman run, and like we've been seeing it, that Heisman run might not even matter for actual NFL draft capital. Those things like don't go hand in hand, but like that's what we need. So someone like even Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, like they might be one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL this year and next year. We're not saying that they're good. We're just saying they're one of the 32 best. That like
they're
the floor
acceptable enough.
Yeah, exactly.
When it's
there's nobody else.
In the bar, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like they're the last girl there and they're drunk, or something like that, So, but Sam Darnold, QB 31, there are worse ways to get a safe QB2 floor with some week one, some QB1 upside because of Justin Jefferson alone. I'm like Jeff. I believe in him that he could be in his Gardner Minshew era. Like this might not be like a full Geno Smith, or it could be, it could be. But I definitely think that if Josh Dobbs can do it, that Sam Darnold can. Next guy is my guy, and I forgot to say it. Like to use the Good Place lingo, you said Sam Darnold was your shirt happens.
There we go.
To be clean, Bo Nix is my boy. Am I gonna look super wrong? This is my so far. I think that he's looked great. He's looked great and done everything asked of him in the preseason. And it never really was him as a prospect, per se. It's always been my biggest complaint has been Sean Payton. And maybe really it has been that Sean Payton hasn't had a guy to like run a system. Moreover, it's only been against, camp guys, maybe not full-time starters. Do you believe that he's like a real guy and he's actually going to be someone, Jeff?
I do. So one, he's got some level of athleticism that he's able to keep plays alive and able to scramble a little bit, but he's just got a lot of reps, and we see it time and time again. These players that have been in college for 4 or 5 years, that have been starters for 4 or 5 years, that's where the Brock Purdy formula, more or less. I mean, you reach a certain amount where it's the inverse of Trey Lance, where Trey Lance needs to play football and he's not able to find a situation where he can actually play football. You've got a guy that has had the reps, he's gone through a playoff chase as Oregon's quarterback. He's gone through that pressure. He's seen different coverages and worked out different solutions to problems. And I think that goes a long way. And we see that time and time again. I mean, you look at Trey Lance, you look at Justin Fields as another player that he really had a season and a half because of COVID of being a starter. And I think that it's tough to overcome that lack of experience relative to having a guy that has a lot of that experience.
Yeah, and I mean that used to be the old school method where it's like they had to have played so many starts.
It's the Bill Parcells rule.
Bill Parcells, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's still a little bit old school because you can nurture a quarterback. But let's say, what I think teams are bad about is they think that they can nurture a quarterback. Like maybe you just can't, man. Like maybe you should just get finished products, get someone who's good. I kind of think that's what Sean McVay, did. He's like, I need somebody who can play, who's seen it all. I just need somebody who can play football. I don't, and then and on top of that, you got Shane Steichens, who can, and the quarterback whispers. A lot of that is I think teams aren't good at self-scouting, and maybe that's what it's been for Sean Payton. Sean Payton got extremely lucky that he got Drew Brees, or he had someone on that roster where they could develop Drew Brees, whereas Russell Wilson ain't it, man. Russell Wilson needs. It's like, I don't know if it was this show or the last one, Jeff. This is like my third one today. Like where you said that every quarterback is a system quarterback. That's why I always hated that with Tom Brady. It's like Tom Brady's a system quarterback. Yeah, you're not running RPOs with Tom Brady. You're not doing. It's like obviously you're going to have to do certain things with them. Whereas with Jalen Hurts, if you're not, you're really wasting that talent. So maybe Bo Nix is I'm not saying he's the next Drew Brees, but maybe he's like not Russell Wilson and somewhere in between that and Drew Brees. Where are you at with him, John?
So I have him as like my QB3 on several teams, and I really like that because if he, so as soon as the NFL teams invest in a player, that is what I like to see. So when you get drafted kind of higher than, let's face it, when everybody has that reaction of, whoa, okay, so that's a little bit higher than we were expecting. The NFL team, when they invest, I like that because that tells me this guy's getting not just like he's going to be a starter in the rookie year. He's probably going to get that second year. Like, I have a 2-year window here to really figure out what I want to do, watching him against actual NFL games, seeing how he manages it. Look, if he's starting for a few weeks and I don't think it's it, I can cash back out and get my exact investment back in safely. Probably at this point, you can get a little bit more than what you invested. If it works out, great. Then maybe he becomes my QB2 on my teams and I bump Sam Darnold down. I mean, I'd rather be starting Sam Darnold right now. I would rather be rostering, obviously, Bo Nix. So, I mean, that's how I tend to play my QB2s. Sometimes I hit on those quarterbacks that I get late in the first round of a Superflex draft. Sometimes I don't. And, I think it remains a little bit to be seen, but I'm kind of positive. I'm kind of happy for Bo Nix because I did draft him several times, and he's just sitting there waiting to fill that QB2 slot so I don't have to go out and do the second round pick for Sam Darnold route.
Yeah, I know for me, I'm kicking myself because I don't have any. And it's like, I know he's a first round pick, but like where he was going at, I really like the wide receivers that were there. And if I needed a quarterback,
exactly why I got him.
Yeah, I moved up and got quarterbacks if I needed one, but like, and now I think it's almost too late, like people are going to want to buy him. So maybe I need to wait for like a down game or something like that. Do you think he's actually the real deal now, Jeff? Like, do you think, even though he's expensive, do you think he's worth buying at like a premium price?
I'm very skeptical about the weapons that are around him to actually get fantasy value out of him. I think he can be a passable, serviceable quarterback. I would need to see some elite playmakers around him before I'm really buying in fantasy, or that rushing to really translate in a meaningful way for fantasy points in an actual game before I think I'm really ready to buy. It's kind of one of those things of, like John said, you've got a little bit of quote unquote insulated value. I mean, we kind of saw that with Kenny Pickett, where you had like a little bit of a window of insulated value with Kenny Pickett. And then after year 2, year 3, it didn't happen. Then the team moved on, but
you definitely had a window shut.
Yeah. I mean, but you did have a window with Pickett there when, that after his rookie year, people were taking him in the 6th or 7th round, 5th round of Superflex drafts. And so that's the thing with Nix, is to really buy in. I either need to see meaningful NFL production, or I need to see some playmakers around him to actually get the ball.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because Troy Franklin ain't it, and apparently Marvin Mims isn't good. And again, this is me growing as an analyst. I need to trust myself more, because I didn't think Marvin Mims was as good as everyone else thought he was. Not that I didn't think he couldn't be a player, but I always tell people, I like guys who can run routes, and Mims can't run routes. And unfortunately, the NFL doesn't really like guys who can't run routes unless they're like Cliff Kingsbury. And as we discussed, he's not a very good coach, so we don't really care what he thinks. So, So we'll move on to our next guy, which is Jeff's, and it's his, I have no idea what it is, but I think I like it. And it's Carson Steele. Before you start, Jeff, I just want to say I was right. I told you that I feel like the Chiefs want someone else other than Sam Pacheco, or excuse me, Isaiah Pacheco, and I'm willing to victory lap already here pretty soon, because everyone said, well, they haven't invested in anyone. I think that the Chiefs are gun shy in investing in running back, period. So everyone is a threat. and the Chiefs. Like Isaiah Pacheco is a 7th round pick. He's the Brock Purdy of running backs, except he's not the Brock Purdy of running backs in the sense to where he's making them a championship level team from his play alone. So, Jeff, with that being said, and me taking that victory lap, I'll let you talk about your guy.
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting the way I know Andy Reid's. They kind of called him a fullback at first, fullback / tight end / running back, and I think that Andy Reid looks at him as a versatile weapon that really I think can take that Jerick McKinnon role and be the passing down back and be protector for Patrick Mahomes. That kind of they can swap out, have him as a fullback potentially in front of Isaiah Pacheco for a power run attack if they wanted to do that, but then also have him in on passing downs to be the protector / dump off player. And I think that was a role that they were looking for somebody to fill and find. I mean, Deneric Prince is an explosive athlete, but I don't think he's there in terms of skill set. And then I think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it was one of those like last resort, like we got to find a way to make Clyde Edwards-Helaire work, and maybe he can do this job, and I don't know that he can. So, and then they tried Kadarius Toney maybe to try to do that job, and I think that's where Steele was the one that stepped up and was able to do that in camp.
Yep, that's like John, to give you I guess some reference of what's been going on. It's like I've ranked Isaiah Pacheco outside of my top 20 for a while now because he's not a 3-down back. And I don't think the Chiefs think he's a 3-down back. And it's hard for me to put him up there just because he's a Chief, because the Chiefs don't even care about rushing. Like they don't need to. Like they'll throw the ball 50 times with Patrick Mahomes. They'll do it, and not even blink an eye. So that's why I just don't think running backs have value. But with Carson Steele, do you think that this is real, or is he just like another training camp darling? Because like to me, he looks like he belongs.
I think he is a riser in that he would have been $0 blind bid fab. Now he's probably going to cost you a few. I'm guessing he's on waiver wires in most leagues. If the waivers haven't run, since the preseason began yet. For me, I'm always willing to invest in cheap running backs. I am never going to get my hopes up for cheap running backs. I will throw dart throws at every cheap running back. I want Prince on my rosters. I want Steele on my rosters. If either of them become a thing, it's instant success. And I really dislike the running back position just in general. So anytime I get a guy that if he's going to be valuable enough for me to put in my starting lineup at any point, I feel like I've stolen a guy. So, I think, he's a value riser. I don't know that I'm going to put a lot of stock into him. Like if somebody's asking for a pick for him, I'm not going to do that. Not right now, but if he's on the waiver wire, I'm going to put in a claim.
Well, he's still a fab guy. I've cleaned him up everywhere that I've been able to buy him, and I'm becoming that guy, especially in Dynasty, where it's like I'm pretty sure by kickoff I'm going to be out of fab, because in Dynasty we kind of already like the guys who are going to be worth it that are on the waiver wire, they're gone by like week 2, and then after that the guys that you're picking up you don't really want. You're not spending. You're spending $1 on, and then you're going to drop them. Yep. So like I'm blowing it. I'm blowing it all on Jordan Whittington, even though he might just be a handcuff receiver. Sure, I'll take it. Cooper Kupp's old. He might get injured. Carson Steele. I was like, someone's like, you dropped $60, and I was like, we have like $400, like a $500 fab budget. That's like nothing. I was like, I thought about upping it more. I already upped it twice because I just wanted to make sure to get my guy. So that's where I'm at. Like, let's put it this way:
waivers in most of my leagues because of that. Like, I literally I don't even bother. It's not worth my time. They're so thin. I end the season with the same amount of fab that I started with. Like, it's usually
I pull mine in right after the rookie draft and in the off season because and then I like to fill what I like to do if I'm really actively managing a league is I'll use these random guys to move up in rookie drafts and to jump tiers in rookie drafts. The guy like Dontavian Wicks or something like that, get me up to where I really want to be in the rookie draft. And by extension, I'm clearing out space for my incoming rookies, but I'm also clearing out space that I can take dart throws on the next Dontavian Wicks and like continue to roll through that. And meanwhile, I'm stockpiling blue chips at the top of my waiver or the top of my dynasty rosters and continuing to throw darts at these guys that emerge. And sometimes in dynasty, it is just that window where guys get exciting for 2 weeks in the preseason and you flip them for a third round pick. And then that third becomes a second because you can do that again. And so I think that's the way to play it. But I do love John's leagues. John is awesome at setting up leagues, but one of the things he does like one running back in a lot of the leagues, and that is just like into my sweet spot. Super flex, one running back, and let me load up on quarterbacks and wide receivers and throw a bunch of darts at any running back to hit. And if I can get a warm body like that week at running back, I'm thrilled.
It's good. I hate running backs.
I'm pro one running back. Like, all right, we'll turn another running back spot to a flex position.
Yeah.
You know, just do whatever you want at that point. Tight end premium, you go bully tight end if you want. And I actually do want to derail this because we got time. We're kind of cruising a little bit. Actually, not really, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about strategy there. Is that like fab guys, we play Dynasty, which means that we do more trades. Blow all that fab now because you're going to be making trades in the middle of the year. You know what? You know what's free in a trade? Fab. People do not care about fab. If you really need fab, just be like, go trade for some BS. It'd be like, hey man, like just throw some 50. Like I don't know how much your fab budget in. It's like just give me $5, give me $10 here. There you go. If you have like a $1 minimum budget, you fix that problem. Like this Dynasty fab is like it's pretty useless. Like it matters, but like it doesn't. Like Jeff said,
it's like fake money. I mean, it's not even fake. It's like fake money.
Yeah, it's again, in redraft. That's a thing. It matters in redraft. Like that Dynasty money isn't real for us. Like draft picks are real money. You know, like for us. So like be reckless with your fab is what I'm trying to say. Like right now, because like Jeff said. After your rookie draft, that's when you can move people to your taxi squad, shuffle stuff around and make room, and then you can go pick up guys. And that's when you're blowing most of your fab at that point. And then there's at most 2 guys. And I think the 2 fab guys for this preseason is Carson Steele, like we just talked about, and probably Jordan Whittington that are only, and I mean by like fab guys, they're the only people that are going to be rosterable. I'm not saying that they might be good, but they're only people that are still going to be on rosters. Anyway, that's enough strategy to talk on side. I just like people ask me about fab at Dynasty, and I'm just like, like, do you like him? Then blow it all. Like, you know,
your worst outcome is you wasted something that's worth nothing. Wow.
Yeah, like just go get more. Like you'll figure it out. You know, our next guy is Kimani Vidal. He's someone that I don't have a lot of, and a lot of people were mad when I did get him, and I didn't understand it because I'm like, this guy is a 5th round pick on like a bad offense. Like people were trading up. They're like, I need to get Kimani Vidal. I'm like, cool. And I was like, you know who matters just as much to me? Dylan Laube. Like, and I'm not saying Dylan Laube is like the next CMC. I'm just saying that none of these guys matter.
No.
You know?
Dylan Laube is your Kimani Vidal. I mean,
that's a very accurate description.
Yeah, exactly. Dylan Laube is my Kimani Vidal. Like, I will trade back in maybe some fab to get back into the 4th round to get Dylan Laube or something like that. But like, I'm not making roster decisions with Dylan Laube. Let's put it that way. Like, and again, like I wrote an article. I said Dylan Laube is a buy, and I even said he's a contender buy because it's like if you're a 0 running back, that's when you go and get him. He's a guy that you want to roster. Don't let him be on your waiver wire. He costs like a 4th round pick or some fab, depending on what to go get him. That's what you want. But like, if he is nothing by week 4. I'm not going to shed a tear because like John said, you had it perfectly. I'm pretty apathetic about these running backs. So this is why I have them as a shaky asset because you know what I'm doing now? I saw like 2 bad things. It's not a panic sell when they weren't worth anything. I don't, no one panic sells at a yard sale. You just want to get crap out of your garage. Right now, Kimani Vidal is in my garage, and I'm like, maybe I can get something to where I can go buy a video game, something that'll actually have value to me. So me and Jeff are kind of the same on Kimani Vidal right now. I'd rather have something else. John, it sounds like you don't care about running backs either, so you sound like you belong here on the show.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
yeah.
Well, when I said I like to shop in the bargain bins, it's mostly for running backs, and I would give like a future third or fourth, because I don't really care about those. A four, either one of either Vidal or Lobby. Like, I'm happy to put either of them on my roster.
Mm-hmm.
They're only going to be important if something bad happens to the player in front of them. Bad things happen to a lot of running backs throughout the season. So for now, it's pretty easy to just kind of lock up a lot of those guys. And if they become startable, hey, I get starter points. Yes, for very cheap. If they actually become startable and they have like even a good series or something, that's when I start looking like, well, okay, how about this player in third to get to a second? Like, that's an actual valuable draft pick.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at a lot of these rookies. And I think Vidal was there. Like, during the rookie draft season, people really, really did like him. Then all of a sudden there was, one little line about he might not make the roster. Like, that's important. But I called him the roller coaster pick because he dropped way down. Like, he went straight down. But then we got to see him play. And he looked pretty good. Like, there's a little bit more buzz with him then after actually playing in a preseason game. But still, it was actual football being played. And I think people are kind of like, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't all just hype from people being bored, 5 months ago or 3 months ago, whenever those drafts were. Maybe there is a little something to it. Maybe there is a chance. So I think people are getting a little bit back in. I'll get a little bit back in there too. Like, I'll be a little bit happy for that. And let's hope that we get a little bit more just to push them over a little bit further down the roller coaster where you're like coming back in the station. And I'm at the worst back to even. But maybe there's some more ups and downs, and I can get off to keep the analogy going, get off the train at that point, or just have a thrilling ride as it goes.
Yeah, I forgot he was your guy. And like you said, you named him as like a roller coaster.
I don't know that he's my guy, but
yeah, he's like he's your guy. It's like you picked him as a riser for this show, my guy. So like, listeners, viewers, just keep that in mind. Like, again, like, guys, we're telling you that like they're worth something, but not like everything. So
I feel like he's where he was just a few months ago after he went down. Like, I mean, but that's good. That's better than being nothing.
Better than being dead, which he's been close to.
That's better than the last thing we've heard about him is he's not going to make the roster, and we saw nothing or heard nothing ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and a little bit of context on that not going to make the roster story. He was hurt, and so he wasn't practicing. And so it was, I mean, I've followed Daniel Popper pretty closely doing reports for the Chargers, and basically Popper said in his report, the guy's not been practicing and he's a 6th-round pick. Like, you can't just put him on the 53-man roster if a 6th-round pick hasn't been practicing. And so he had a really good week of practice and he ran well in the preseason game. But he's what I love about Dynasty, because not a soul was talking about Kimani Vidal last fall for college football. And then we get these guys that it's kind of like one of those things like, well, nobody was talking about him, so I'll start talking about him, and then we all start talking about him, and it's just kind of like creates that momentum that puts him into the 3rd round, even though he's a 6th-round pick, and should you really be taking 6th-round picks in the 3rd round? But it's running back, and
things what else you going to take in the 3rd round?
Yeah.
I remember someone making fun of me because they're like, why'd you take Xavier Legette in the 3rd round? Like, Kimani Vidal's there. Didn't you like him? I was like, yeah, I like this tape. They're like, and you hated Legette's tape. And I'm like, yeah, I think his tape sucked.
1st-round
pick.
Like,
yeah, they're like, why'd you take him? I was like, because the team spent money on him. Like, it's like I'm just, at the end of the day, I'm just a guy, like, and all I can do is follow the draft capital. It's like, I literally told him, I was like, yeah, I objectively like Kimani Vidal and hate Xavier Legette, but I'm going to draft Legette over Vidal 10 times out of 10. Like, it's process over personal BS. So it's just,
we can all like as many players as we want. We aren't in charge of them getting on the field. And guess what?
Correct.
The people that pick them are the ones that then choose how to use them.
Yeah.
So, like, I will be a draft capital apologist forever, because there are some egos usually involved. And usually people either like to prove themselves as right or prove that they're not wrong, at least. So,
yeah. It's like,
that's how that works.
I don't want to prove myself right. I want to be right. That's like, and a lot of that is just making adjustments. Like you can be wrong for a little bit. That's what's cool about fantasy. Like especially Dynasty. Like I'm gonna be wrong about like Bo Nix. I'm like, okay, well I'm done being wrong about Bo Nix. It's time to time to make that adjustment.
You get new information, you change. Like
Exactly.
it's
And with that being said, I have my guy next, and I think he might be a my guy. He's my no shirt dude. To censor myself, it's Roma Dunze. Like, and this is why everyone's like, well, duh, he's good. Yeah, we knew he was good, but everyone just like, even us, like, he may not be good this year. He may not be that good because it's crowded. And like maybe it's not crowded because Keenan Allen is like playing tight end. Apparently now he's on a bulk or something, 2 weeks out from the regular season. And again, he's 32. And then on top of that, maybe Caleb Williams is just really good and the Bears are going to turn it around. And we just had our football guys Stafford lead for the Football Guys Bowl. Shout out to that. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. And I don't know if you still have time for that, but go to footballguys.com/plans. I was supposed to do that earlier, but do that right now. And then you have a chance to get in. Anyway, I just took Roma Odunze.
At the beginning, nobody will know.
Yeah.
Cut it, put it back at the beginning. Nobody will know.
It's because I took it off the show sheet one time, and it's gonna take me like a whole season to put it back. Roma Odunze, I took him in the 4th round in redraft, and that's why I said he's not just a riser for me in Dynasty. Like I'm putting up in my rankings. It's more that I'm thinking of him as someone who's going to be maybe the crux of my scoring and my wide receivers for fantasy. I think I've seen enough. I think he's going to be a guy sooner than later. I don't think it's. I think there's I think there's more than a 0% chance that he could outscore Malik Neighbors towards the tail end of the season. Am I getting too crazy, Jeff?
No, I mean, we've done multiple shows together, and I've said again and again that there seems to be like people view him as an inherent ceiling when you're grabbing Roma Dunze. But I mean, if he hits this year and Caleb Williams hits, he's a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, like immediately, like in that conversation. And so that's where it gets, I think it's there. I mean, we're seeing it in preseason now, translating these two that we kind of talked about all offseason. A lot of work between the two of them. I mean, they were throwing together before the NFL draft. And I think that, Caleb Williams really wanted Roma Odunze on the team, and the Bears made that happen. And you kind of have to pick up these narratives and follow it through. And when it starts to show on the field, that matters quite a bit. And I mean, Keenan Allen has been a great player in his career, but we see it with every single player. And usually coming off an injury, on an older player, they're not quite the same player. And the NFL it's on a razor. It's so razor thin on being a great player versus should you even be on the field. And I think more often than not, we tend to err on the side of this guy's a name, this guy's been productive, and we need to really see it before it's happening. And then even when we do see it, we don't want to believe it. And I think we're seeing it with Keenan Allen.
Yep. And I thought I invested in him more than I did. Thank God it was 3 leagues, like the startups that I did where I got him in, and I'm already starting to move him. Because, and I've talked about him on the show. I even said as a caveat that, I'm drafting him for his value now, or at the time. I'm drafting for his value then so I could sell him right now. Where, maybe some people know, but, the normies, and if you're in a lot of leagues, you're going to have the casuals in there that you could sell him to. Get him off your roster right now. Go get someone that I'm going to talk about later, like a Romeo Doubs. Go get something that might actually gain in value while you can. Because, 32 is pretty old, guys. It's most receivers are done. And like Larry Fitzgerald was one of the few to do it, and Larry Fitzgerald had a much more physical game than Keenan Allen had at the time, to where Larry Fitzgerald basically legitimately was a tight end the last 3 years of his career, essentially. So man, Roma Odunze, Football Guys wide receiver 12 in Dynasty, Keep Trade Cut wide receiver 14. I have a real Dynasty league where my quarterbacks are Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams, and then my wide receivers are Marvin Harrison and Roma Odunze. And I was just I'm still I might not make playoffs this year, but I'm not tearing it down. I'm just trying to get better and then maybe buy some injured guys that are going to be good in the middle of the season. And I'm starting to think that I have as good as a contender as anybody at this point. So move on to Jeff's guy. This is definitely a thing, and I've seen you fight the good fight for him. It's Demarcus Robinson. You've already kind of talked about him, and when we were going through the training camp reports, you've written about him. Demarcus Robinson is the wide receiver 3 for the Rams, and we've seen iterations of the Rams offense, so the wide receiver 3 has real value.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm give a big shout out, but Jordan Rodriguez has been on this and she does great work for The Athletic, but he is the X receiver in the offense. And there's a lot of talk around fantasy and, Dynasty, especially about Jordan Whittington breaking out. And I see people again and again, they'll say, well, Demarcus Robinson is 29, 30 years old and never done anything. Why was he going to be the guy? Whereas we have this mystery box over here with Jordan Whittington, but they're playing different roles in this offense. They play different receiver positions, and it's not a one-to-one comparison here. It's not we're going to bench Demarcus Robinson because we want to play Jordan Whittington in Cooper Kupp's spot so we can play Cooper Kupp in Demarcus Robinson's spot. Like that's not how Sean McVay works his offense. And it's Demarcus Robinson has been running with the first team every single rep, spring, summer, no question. Tutu Atwell is his backup. And I think that this is one of the things that our fantasy minds can struggle with sometimes because we see wide receiver next to everybody's name, but there's like 5 different wide receiver positions. And Demarcus Robinson does Demarcus Robinson's job and they love him in it. He's got a great rapport with Matthew Stafford. Like, this is a legitimate dude. This guy is going to be on the field a lot. The Rams play more 3 wide receiver sets than any other team in the NFL. I think they were at like 97% last year. And so that's 97% of the time that Demarcus Robinson's going to be on the field, not Jordan Whittington playing Cooper Kupp's spot so Cooper Kupp can play Demarcus Robinson's spot.
Yeah, and it's like, and I've already kind of alluded to this. I think Jordan Whittington is going to be a valuable wide receiver handcuff.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like a Noah Brown last year. When someone went down, Noah Brown had value at that point. But until that happened, it didn't really matter. It was just the Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz show up until that point. We've seen that with the Eagles, where I tell everyone, I don't like Dallas Goedert because Dallas Goedert is a handcuff receiver where he's mainly blocking until something happens to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Now it's kind of a new offense, so that may not be the same, but I'm not willing to make that bet otherwise.
But think about it this way. So remember back when there was Brandon Cooks and there was Robert Woods and there was Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
So Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua is Robert Woods, where you're running these jet motions, you're getting him the ball, you're allowing him to be physical and those types of things. And Demarcus Robinson is Brandon Cooks, who's attacking you vertically downfield. You can't just throw Jordan Whittington to attack you vertically downfield. That's what Brandon Cooks / Demarcus Robinson does.
Yep. You nailed it. And it's like you said, Jordan Whittington's definitely Puka's backup. That's what I just watched the Rams game film on there. A lot of jet motions, stuff like that, getting him moving and open in space. He's not a guy that's like winning even like Cooper Kupp does. I don't think he's not like a nuanced route runner. And if you've listened to Matt Harmon, we've had him on the show. I've talked to Matt Harmon about this. Me and you have talked about this. You nailed it. Wide receiver is multiple positions to be used differently. John, we'll kick it to you. Where are you at on Jordan Whittington, Demarcus Robinson? Did you go out of your way to get Whittington or is Robinson? Do you still see him on the waivers in your leagues?
I am now convinced. I'm going to go look for Demarcus Robinson. I will say, I remember Tutu Atwell starting for me in a vampire league last year, and he performed really well for a couple of weeks because we didn't have any other players because that's how vampire league works. So I need to go check that league specifically to see if Demarcus Robinson is there. He's not somebody you're going to have to invest a lot in, and if you get anything out of him, Jeff's convinced me. He's not somebody that would have been on my radar really at all prior to Jeff's passionate pleading there. So I like that. I like it. I'm in. I'll waste some fab on him.
Yeah, let's put it this way. He's football guys wide receiver 109. I have moved him
That's
up my
definitely
ranking.
waiver wires.
Yeah. Keep trade cut, he's even cheaper, guys. He's the 111. Like I had to let's put it this way. I was going through the rankings to find him on Keep Trade Cut. It's like
Scrolling.
it's a fourth page Google stuff. Trying to get to him on Keep Trade Cut,
I did an episode of
Are
Dynasty
you
Junkies,
sure?
and
Do you
we
or
helped
do you
somebody
really?
find a trade. They were able to trade Daniel Bellinger straight up for Demarcus Robinson, and I was like, dude, that's a win.
No.
That seems like a pretty fair trade. But I would give Daniel Bellinger right now. I would want the Demarcus Robinson side of it. Jeff's convinced me. And I'm also going to go check any league against you to make sure that you pay at least $2 for him.
Yeah. He's gonna make sure that you pay up that fab.
For context, he's my wide receiver 45 in redraft, based off my projections. So that's my context there.
Hey, we're at the point of dynasty season where redraft becomes important because you got to fill those lineups out eventually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's where when we tell you to buy these players, that's where your expectations should be. Demarcus Robinson is a guy that at most you're going to throw in on your flex if you have injuries or bye weeks or just a really good matchup. Let's say that like maybe he goes full Brandon Cooks, and he does have like real, I would say like a good 9.4 or something like that. That's great. So you're still probably put him in the flex if you built the rest of your team correctly. And he might not hold that value long term because he is old. And this is, like John said, we're playing redraft for 3 months, a little bit.
Yeah.
So
a little bit. I mean, it just kind of happens that way.
Yep. Next, we have Rico Dowdle. Your team hasn't made any new moves and it's only broken Zeke ahead of him. It's true. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. I just know they're not doing it well. John, I'll let you give it. I mean, you kind of given your argument of him. He's he's the only guy.
That's it. If they bring somebody in between now and the start of the season, then I would no longer want him at all. But I mean, at this point, it's literally just like Zeke. Like that is the concern. I am also fine with taking Zeke on plenty of rosters. These are two running backs where if I can start them for a couple of weeks, find out how my team is really going to be throughout the year, then if I am contending, that's when I'm going and investing in a good running back, and I'm shoving these two to the bench. But for now, I mean, like Dowdle's cheap. Go out and get him and just hope that I can play him for the first few weeks, prove that my team is good enough and that running back position is where I can improve. I don't think I'm going to get great things out of him. But again, he is rising because he went from me not wanting him at all to now I have a little bit of interest in him. I would like to kick the tires to see what he costs me. I'm not paying a lot, but I don't think you have to pay a lot to get him, to be honest. So,
Jeff, do you think he gets more burn this year? Or do you think Zeke is going to come in and be ugly Zeke again?
I think like Twitter, we've wish casted a Miles Sanders, Kendra Miller, Khalil Herbert, Dallas Cowboys backfield, and I mean, right now it's still Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle, and I'm grabbing them when they're sitting at value, and especially in a best ball formats, I'm grabbing them in underdog when I can get them in like round 12, and you're telling me that either of these guys have upside to be a running back 2, or Zeke has the upside to score 15 touchdowns and Dowdle has the upside to be a Tony Pollard light that, and if I'm not stressing about which one I need to get into my lineup or even in a managed league, like there's sitting there with pure backups and there's massive upside. I mean, buy ambiguous backfields, always buy ambiguous backfields.
Thank you, JJ.
Yep. Yeah, it's always a good bet because it costed you nothing, and and they have just as good of a chance as anybody to get touches. So, Rico, it's been hard for me to buy Rico Dowdle. I like out of anyone, I'll buy Ezekiel Elliott, and again, guys, I'm the ugly running back buyer. Like I giggle and kick my feet about Jerome Ford. so like I should
I
be
have him
more.
on teams too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's
Oh,
technically my kind of guy, but like for some
yep.
reason I don't have more of him. So
So I tell myself all the time, like once I find out if my team's good, then I'll go in and I'll invest more
yep.
and get that running. But every year what happens is I have this ugly running back, and like doing the job, and I'm like, well, maybe I don't have to. So I just don't. I never do. I just run them and run them out for the rest of the year, and hope that it goes all the way through. And sometimes
Yeah,
it does, and those are leagues I win. And then when it doesn't, those are leagues I'm like, oh, that's the one where I was supposed to actually follow that plan of moving on from this running back faster.
you're
We
calling me
started
out.
the show. I was gonna say we started the show talking about your quarterback strategy, where you like to have a top end
Wide
quarterback
receivers,
and
tight ends, top
any.
end quarterback. That's it.
Not only that, but like if I'm really humming in a dynasty league, like I'll have like a Bijan Robinson or a Brees Hall, and
Yes.
then my running back 2 will be
Just doesn't matter.
15 guys that
Yeah.
might be Rico Dowdle.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. That's exactly it. If I treat my running back 2 and my quarterback 2 very similarly. I want the stud at the first position slot. After that, I just don't. I'm going to look. Wide receiver is expensive. A good tight end is expensive. You can't spend everywhere. You can find production at your QB2 slot. You can find production at your running back 2 slot. That's where I try and get the discount so that I can overinvest in the other areas where it's way more expensive.
Yeah, in my running back rankings article, like what I call the running back gold zone, I'm not even thinking about even drafting a running back, and most time I don't until RB 14, 13 or 14. Like Jonathan Brooks I'll pay up for now, but it's like David Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson. I'm like, okay, that's my RB1. And then it's kind of like you said, after that I'm just getting like little pieces, and you nailed it, John, where now I'm competitive, I have a good roster. Now I'm going to start putting these guys together with like here's Jerome Ford in a second. Will you give me Ramondre if I don't already have him, or David Montgomery, or I'm tearing down off other wide receivers and trying to pick up some of these other running backs going forward. And I guess that is a good segue to get to my next guy here, because he's been one of my favorite people to tear down off of, specifically from his teammate Jaden Reed, and that is Romeo Doubs. I call him it's free real estate, man. If you look at the drumbeat, Romeo Doubs is the guy right now. Like, I think that he's going to be the guy. Christian Watson might be the odd man out. It's not that I don't like Jaden Reed. It's kind of like I think it was last show we were talking about Jordan Addison, where realistically Jordan Addison and Jaden Reed are going to be wide receiver 3s forever. Like, they're going to, like, they might have wide receiver 2 games and they might have the occasional hat trick, but realistically they're always going to be a dynasty wide receiver 3 for you. Romeo Doubs might be an actual stud wide receiver 2. He might be the guy, or he might just be the cheaper version of Jaden Reed. Either way, I would rather move off Jaden Reed to get Romeo Doubs, because I've consistently gotten Jaden Reed. I've consistently moved Jaden Reed for Romeo Doubs in a second, which feels really good when you think that Romeo Doubs has just as high of a ceiling. Jeff, we'll start with you. Wide receiver 52, and now Keep Cuddy's wide receiver 43. Do you think that that's a little low for his value, or do you think that's right where he needs to be?
43 is probably pretty close where it needs to be. We talked about the Packers wide receiver room before, and I think fantasy Twitter, all of us were trying to figure out for so long, what is it? And we did a show a couple weeks ago where I said, we know what it is. It's just not what we want it to be. And I think it's Christian Watson as kind of that primary guy, then Jaden Reed as the gadget slot guy, and Romeo Doubs is just that solid second receiver that's going to be at the end of the year flirting with 1,000 yards and flirting with 8 to 10 touchdowns. And you kind of sleep on him a little bit, but then at the same time, you look at the final receiver rankings and he's wide receiver 32 year after year.
Yep. That's exactly it. And it's, again, guys, it's not that I think he's going to be like I said he's going to be stud. He could be, but like, I think that him and Jaden Reed's floor and ceiling are probably close. So why wouldn't I go get the cheaper version and pick up free assets? Because I think I've picked up, like I talked about buying running backs. I traded Jaden Reed for David Montgomery and Romeo Doubs. I feel like I got free David Montgomery. If you really think about that, if you think about what Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs are going to look like at the end of the season, that's a free RB2 with some RB1 weeks, and I'll take that 10 times out of 10. John, where are you at on the Green Bay wide receivers?
Unfortunately, I think they're all good enough to make each other not valuable enough. That's the really bad part about them. And for Dubs, I'm waiting because I don't want to miss my window again. I've already missed it once because I ended up having a lot of him because I think somebody might have been Matt Price. Somebody put me on him like real early. Then all of a sudden he did. He came out and he was really good. Like I could have traded him for a first, and I didn't because I thought I found something and I was stealing. And then he quickly dropped back down in value, and now he's just kind of like plateaued there. So I'm hoping you're right and he gets back up to that value because I am out as fast as I possibly can again. When I miss that window, I don't want to miss it again. I don't know that he gets there again, only because of all the other competition. That's the unfortunate thing. They're all very, very good. I like your move of basically swapping one to the other and adding. That's like I would probably go the other way, whichever way gives you that pick. They all feel really, really same in value. So getting an extra second round pick on one of them, that feels good. Getting David Montgomery, that feels pretty good. That's where I stand on the Green Bay Packers wide receiver room. They're all kind of interchangeable at this point, unfortunately, and that because of that makes them all a little bit less valuable to me.
No. Well, we'll finish off with Jeff's last guy, and you said here, of course, after I dropped him, and it's Jordan Mason. I told everyone that Elijah Mitchell, like the time of the Elijah Mitchell is dead, and the age of the Jordan Mason is here now. It's the Elijah Mitchell just can't seem to stay healthy. I think he's dealing with some type of injury now, or he just recently has. He's unranked on Football Guys right now. Keep Trey Cuddy's RB63. Jeff, where are you at with Jordan Mason? You think he gets you think he's just a valuable handcuff at this point, or do you think he gets actual burn?
I mean, he's in that system. He's a valuable handcuff because, I mean, Kyle Shanahan's pretty smart, and he's the anti-Arthur Smith, and he just gives the ball to Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle, and says, you guys are pretty good. You guys are going to touch the ball. So that's where he's kind of handcuff value. But at the same time, I've been such an apologist for Jordan Mason, and I had him loaded up on I think every single roster I possibly could. And then the draft came around and they took Isaac Guerendo in the 4th round, and Mason seemed stuck behind Elijah Mitchell. And
you cut Mason to make room for Isaac Guerendo.
Yeah. When you walk out of that rookie draft and you say, well, you get that nasty message from Sleeper saying you're 6 players over the limit, and you're like, well, somebody's got to go, and you're looking at it, and the 49ers 4th string running back, I guess, it has to go, but I still have him a lot, but I don't have him as much as I did before, and now I'm kicking myself because, of course, I guess I was right, and he earned his role because Jordan Mason's a good football player.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, and it's like you said, he's one of those things where you just know who he is in that system, and it really almost doesn't matter who's back there as long as Kyle Shanahan likes him. Like, could it be Jordan Mason? We joked, we brought up Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. He'd come out of retirement, and I think he's going to have some value within this system because Kyle Shanahan is the anti-Arthur Smith in every sense. He is good at scheming, but he does give it to his studs. So you got to pray for something bad to happen, which no one really wants to begin with.
We pray for nothing but safety for their starting running back.
Yeah, for CFC.
Nothing but safety.
Yeah, because he kind of makes the offense go. Anything to add on Jordan Mason before we let you go, John?
I'd be a little hesitant. I actually, if something were to happen to CMC, like it won't, it's not going to happen. I think their backup plan would either be complete collapse on that team, or they might be the team that would go out and just let's get somebody else. We have one shot at this right now this year. I think they feel their window they can only last with Brock Purdy on that rookie contract deal so long. So I don't know that they would, if they have the option to pull from somewhere else and just keep Jordan Mason as the backup running back to somebody else. I have a hard time believing they wouldn't go that route. Maybe not, but for me, like the 49ers are the team that if they want to go out and if they see their window, they are an aggressive team that would go out and make that kind of a deal if they had to. But they're not going to, because CMC is going to be perfectly healthy all year. It's going to be great.
That, or we've seen it before where you'll play Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell will get 25 carries, and then you'll play Elijah Mitchell and then Jordan Mason will get 25 carries with Kyle Shanahan. We've been on that rodeo until they went out and got Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. And that's real easy. Christian McCaffrey's going to get the ball.
No. The answer is nobody. You just like you want to sell Jordan Mason to the Christian McCaffrey owner. You're like, hey, here's a safe handcuff. Give me a third or something.
Somebody comes to me for that, and I'm saying, I'm not taking that on, because if something happens, I don't want to have Christian McCaffrey's backup. I'm just going to fold that league, out of my port. It's not in my memory. I don't see it anymore. It's just that league's just over when you lose a guy like Christian McCaffrey. So
yeah.
I'm not going to plan for that. I'm not going to do it.
Well, we'll end it right there. As always, guys, I'm Jagger May. If you like this content, we're going to have more of it coming. We're going to be moving to 3 days a week in season, where we're just going to have a whole show that's just about trades, because that's what you guys want. You could probably ask us questions, and we'll talk about it on if you ask us on Twitter or something like that. Then we're going to break down any news, and then we're going to have our usual episode like these where we pick a particular topic. So give us that like, give us a subscribe. I'm Jagger, that's Jeff, and then with us as our guest is John. John, you got anything cool happening soon?
Oh, we always have stuff over at Fantasy Cares. So you can go like and subscribe on that channel too. Fantasy Cares, and follow us on Twitter at FantasyCaresOrg. You'll find all kinds of fun stuff that we're doing.
Yes. So like I said, John does quite literally the Lord's work over there. He does Fantasy Cares does a lot, and they raise a lot of money. And if you want to play fantasy football and do something good, go check them out. And we'll see you on the next one.